400 Sip Avenue, Jersey City, New Jersey. This particular tract of land has gone by many names, including the PJP Landfill, PJP Landfill Superfund site, the Pulaski Distribution Center, and the Skyway Park. This sequence of names gives us some hints about the nature of the site over time, but our story begins when this location was simply named the PJP Landfill. Beginning operations in 1970, the site was used to dump industrial and chemical waste. The landfill would later come to be fined for the illegal dumping of waste at this property, receiving citations from both Jersey City and the EPA. This waste almost immediately caught fire, and from 1970 to 1985, the waste dumped at the site would burn, off and on, spewing smoke from the landfill into the air of the surrounding community. Sitting in the west of Jersey City along the Hackensack River, this waste was far out of the way of the wealthier downtown and Hudson River waterfront, situated firmly in a poor and historically minority portion of the city. The community was neither oblivious nor complacent with regards to the dangers of the site. How could they be, when it wasn't a rare occasion to see the landfill spewing smoke like this? Needless to say, the fires were hard to ignore. Which is why the community couldn't stay silent, with the largest protests taking place in March and April 1985. The initial phase in March saw 1,500 people protest the failure of the authorities to protect the community from the smoke, prompting an attempt to extinguish the fire that only made the smoke problem worse. 1 month later, in April 1985, locals again went out to protest, accompanied both times by influential figures, including New Jersey Senator James Florio and John O'Connor, a coordinator for the national campaign against toxic hazards. Prior to this point, there had been numerous efforts to extinguish the fires, but for 15 years they'd never been enough. This final push was different. The combination of community activism and outside support was enough to secure the resources to extinguish the fires for good. Following the extinguishing of the fires, not much happened at the site for some 25 odd years. Portions of the landfill were capped, and ventilation systems were installed to make sure there was no gas buildup underground that could reignite the blaze, but the remainder of the waste remained in the ground, and the site lay unused while health authorities tried to determine what should be done. During this time, nothing definitive was decided about what the future of the site would be. That is, until the mid-2000s, when debate opened up about the potential futures in store for the site. Jersey City was under financial strain at the time, prompting the mayor to welcome businesses to take over large swathes of the property, advocating for the construction of a large warehouse and distribution center. The county briefly entertained an idea to expand the nearby 9-hole golf course to a full 18, and some Jersey City officials briefly considered the idea of moving an incinerator off another contaminated site and putting it here, an ironic codification of what the landfill previously was. Many local people called for the entire 87 acres to be converted into a public park for the benefit of the community. Eventually, the warehouse was approved to be built, and a company known as AMB, now Prologis, purchased the majority of the site in 2008. By 2014, the warehouse was fully operational, sending and receiving shipments along with leasing space for other businesses. The remainder of the site, about 32 acres, has been set aside for the public park the community was calling for. At a glance, it appears that the site has made substantial progress in the last 50 years. While this is undeniable, the question must be asked, progress for whom? If you look closely, you might notice there is no park. At best, you have a series of grassy fields. And yet, the warehouse has been up and operational for years. The locals were promised fresh air and open spaces, when really all they got was empty promises and a different type of air pollution. Last century, it was underground fires. Now, they're breathing truck exhaust. While it may seem like the community was able to reach a compromise with the mayor and business interests, splitting the site between a park and warehouse, so far it's only the business interests that have been served. Now, city officials are once again claiming that they are going to finally build the park, this time as a dedication to those that lost their lives to COVID-19. But only time will tell if they will stick to their promise or if this will be just another chapter in the story of poor and minority Jersey City residents getting the short end of the stick.